Hello and welcome to the Super Show. I am Jonesy and today I'm joined by the awesome Jamie. Say hello, Jamie.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Jonesy. Thank you for having me, Mr. Host Man.
Thank you so much for being here. Unfortunately, Chris has got, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, I'm going to say it anyway because he's not here to tell me off. He's got COVID.
He's got the Rona.
Unfortunately, he has been being very good as well. So he's just been very unfortunate. And he's picked up COVID, but he is doing pretty well. Spoken to him this week, and he's dealing with symptoms, but fair to say that he's getting through it pretty well, as we knew he would. He's a tough little cookie, isn't he?
Certainly sounds like it, but still, we wish him all the best and a quick recovery. And I guess if you guys want to leave him a little message, why not? If you're watching on YouTube, head down to the comments down below, leave him a little something, just so he can read it. Something for him to come back to.
A lovely idea.
I'm a lovely person.
Of encouragement, of a message to say get well soon or whatever you want. But hey, we're not a COVID podcast. We could be. We are a gaming podcast with a little bit of COVID dashed in. Chris.
Sure.
We have. What do we have? Trash opinion, hot takes and trash opinions. That's what it is. I nearly forgot it.
That's what Chris tells people we have, yeah.
Indeed. We are at SuperShow Pod on YouTube and Twitter. You can get us there, or we are also on all of the major podcasting platforms. So you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, and all the rest. But, Jamie, we are also radio megastars, internet radio megastars. You can catch us weekly on Thursdays at 10 p.m. and that is on paisleyradio.com.
Oh, yeah.
And with any of those ways to hear us, Jamie, there's no real excuse to miss a show, is there?
No, there's so many ways to catch it now that you've basically got no excuse.
It's like COVID. There are so many ways to catch it.
Oh, God. Yeah, welcome to the new variant of the Super Show, fresh out of South Africa. We are actually, we're finding new audience members at 7 times the rate that we used to. It's the
that would be nice.
Actually,
that would be good.
Well, answer me this, Jonesy. What's 7 times 0?
It's not 7, that's for sure.
Well, funnily enough.
But hey, from one bug to another, Jamie.
Oof, yikes.
Because it is Cyberpunk was supposed to be having a good week this week because they released the patch 1.1, which was the first non-hotfix that they'd released, and it was supposed to address a whole raft of bugs and glitches and issues that they had mainly on the older gen. I was going to say current gen, the older gen of PlayStation and Xbox. Unfortunately, it seems that whilst that patch has addressed a number of issues, it has also introduced a new game-breaking bug.
Jonesy, do you remember, I don't know, let's call it mid-December maybe even late December, a simpler time by most accounts.
Simpler time, yeah.
Where CD Projekt Red announced that after all these hotfixes, there would be a big patch in January and a big patch in February. And we all of a sudden got this crazy idea in all of our heads that maybe we might even be playing a significantly better, probably not perfect, but better version of that game by, if not January, then February, maybe even March. I can't tell you how sad it is that couldn't feel further from the truth at this stage based on this patch.
No, I mean, I think if you have said this was another hotfix, people would have not been surprised. It didn't actually seem like it was going to do it that much. It did address a whole number of issues, apparently. But nowhere near enough to be the sort of part 1 of a 2-patch little thing that was going to happen in January and February. And people were genuinely talking about the game being what we were hoping it was going to be on the previous generations after these 2 patches. And it's like, we I think said at the time, there's no way. There is no way.
No shot at all.
No way.
I think the February one could and probably will be bigger and better and have more notable improvements because we're still at the stage where clearly they've got so much work to do that you can look at before and after shots of this patch and be like, what happened? What changed? Nothing. But a frustrating thing, certainly for anyone hoping and praying that game, even incrementally, just gets better over the passage of time because slow start.
I think, to be fair to them, the main thing they need to focus on is the previous gen and to make sure that those versions work. I mean, that is the majority of people playing on console are going to be playing on the PlayStation 4. They're going to be playing on the Xbox One. So fair enough for them to focus on that. I really do hope the February one does a bit more. But at the moment, they have introduced a new game-breaking bug. So let me break it down for you, Jamie. Okay. Because after the quest Down on the Street, when you get a call from Takamura, he doesn't talk. He just sits there in a little box, not saying anything, just staring at you lovingly maybe. The problem is you need him to deliver his dialogue in order to like close off this mission and allow you to continue. As this is like a main story quest, if this does happen and he doesn't close out that mission, you can't progress in the story and effectively you're stuck.
Yep, great, perfect. Exactly what this game needed was another way to halt your progress.
This also, surprisingly, so I was reading about, I was watching a video, from IGN today about this bug where they sort of outlined what it was, specifically how it worked, and a workaround that CDPR have released for it on the support site. But I'd already seen quite a few people talking about it before this, and so it actually seems to be pretty widespread. I was thinking maybe it's a bug that's only limited to a few people, but the fact that we already saw people tweeting about it as soon as that patch went live doesn't fill me with...
Especially as it's something that blocks progress at a specific point in the story. So we could be talking about a very small group of people who were just before this point in the story when they installed and continued playing with the 1.1 patch.
Yes.
So it's surprising that so many people discovered it so early.
So you've then got everyone who hasn't reached that point in the story yet, who are then going to bump into this issue. Mm-hmm. And maybe if you're lucky, you've already passed this point in the story, so it's not going to affect you. But then you're less bothered, I suppose, about patches and stuff anyway, because you might have already finished the game, in which case...
Or never even started it.
Or never started it like you, or put it on a back burner like me to come back to a later date. I'm not sure. I don't know if I've done this down on the street. I actually don't know. I've done a few Takemura missions, but I don't know if I've done
When
this
you
one.
talk about coming back to Cyberpunk at a later date, not to bring this back to that bloody virus, but it kind of reminds me of every time I have a conversation with my mum about when things might quote-unquote go back to normal. Of course, within reason, things will probably never go back to normal, but every day, week I talk to her, it's like pushed back by another month. Like, maybe summer will be okay. And everyone's just hanging on to that little bit of hope for when normality returns. It's the same with this fucking game.
What's scary about your analogy there is it's probably too accurate because you just said it. You're like, people keep saying, when we go back to normal after COVID, and then you corrected yourself and said, let's be honest, we'll never go back to normal. I think the reality with Cyberpunk is people are saying, when the game is fixed, it's like, come on, it's never going to be fixed.
So true.
It's going to be something different and we'll have to get used to it. And that's the way it's going to be.
Whether it's life post-COVID or Cyberpunk 2077, we're going to have to learn to live a life with compromises. Life is about compromise.
Life is about compromise. So there is, let me say, just for people who do bump into this bug or may bump into it if you haven't got past it yet and you're worried about it, there is a hotfix. Sorry, not hotfix. There is a workaround, which is one of the worst workarounds I've heard in a computer game. So apparently, this is off CDPR's site. So basically what you have to do is once you finish the mission, immediately upon coming out of the area before Takemura calls you, you pause the game, you skip 23 hours. Sorry, if you haven't reached the bug yet and you do bump into it, you skip 23 hours ahead, and then you should then not have the issue. So Takemura shouldn't call and get stuck. If you've already had the bug, you have to reload a save from before you finish the mission, and then finish the mission again. Then wait, progress time by 23 hours. And then see if it's fixed it.
Shocking.
The problem is here, if you haven't got a save from before that, and let's say you've run off and done other stuff in the world, side quests and whatever, expecting this to cure itself.
Yeah,
you're going to be kind of stitched up, aren't you? You're going to be a bit stiff.
Oh, absolutely. Like having to roll back to an old save because of a game-breaking bug is like the definition of bullshit. I was hoping for a more impactful word there, but yeah, bullshit. I'll settle for that.
I want to say that they, that they've got like at least they've then said that'll work if you do that, but they haven't even said that. They've said, and then try, and it should have worked. If it hasn't, do it again.
Exactly.
Like,
the thing is, because it's not even a workaround. It's basically like, we've got a thing we think make sure that you'll avoid it happening if it hasn't happened to you yet. But you're right, They've got no solution for anyone this has already happened to. And look, developers get caught off guard by this stuff. These are things that probably didn't get found in testing somehow, and if they did, they were probably overlooked for bigger, nastier issues, such as the way the games are developed nowadays. But still, like, it's just a bad look. Because the other thing about this is, like, bugs being introduced or reintroduced in later patches and later fixes, also a thing that games have to go through. We all understand that.
Sure.
But it's just that we've reached the point now with this game that anything that happens, any subsequent issue, bug, and so on and so forth that this game has to deal with just adds to the frustration around it and gives podcast people like us more fuel to throw all over that already raging fire, which why wouldn't we? People love it.
They do. Apparently they do, yeah. I think the only other issue with it, one of the things I suppose I can give to them is, with a game this size, the idea and the rate at which they're trying to get hotfixes and patches out, I guess one of the problems is they can't start a new campaign and go from start to finish in quality testing every time they've got a new patch to release, because they just don't have time. So let's say that every hotfix they dropped in December, I guess that they were doing them at such a clip that it would have taken, 25 hours or whatever to get through that story and some of the side stuff and get to the end and test it again. And could they really do that? Maybe not, but hey, that's still their job.
Yeah, ultimately, that's what those departments are for. Yikes.
So they did have a tiny little bit of a boost today, actually, though, Jamie, which we'll get into a little bit of more of a chat about stock and stuff later.
God.
Which will be exciting. But Elon Musk actually tweeted about Cyberpunk specifically and kind of CDPR adjacent in another sense, because he, let me just find the tweets. What did I do with him? I've stuffed him somewhere. No, I can't bloody find him. He was talking about his Cybertruck, and he put a few pictures up of the Cybertruck. And you can actually play The Witcher 3, I believe, and Cyberpunk on the display, the touchpad display or whatever it is. I don't know what interface you can use, a control or something, but you can play it on the model, is it the Plaid S, the Tesla Plaid S, I believe.
You're speaking in code to me. That's all double Dutch.
A car. It's a Tesla car.
I don't know anything about Teslas. I've got to be honest.
So I've got his tweets here. So he said, he started off by saying, even Discord has gone corpo, which if you play a bit of Cyberpunk,
little reference there. Reference. Sure. Yeah.
He then, a few little things he mentions about the car, but then he says, the aesthetics of Cyberpunk are incredible, by the way. The interior design it does one of those.
Okay.
And he says that the Cybertruck can play Cyberpunk. The Plaid Model S, he's talking about, ships next month. But because he said that, because the man himself, the myth, Elon Musk, the strange dude that he is, he bumped the stock price of CD Projekt by about 20%.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Is it though? Given what else, given the week we've had, is it?
No, yeah, okay, fair enough. It's not. I was happy because I've got a few shares in CD Projekt and it bumped them up a little bit. I've got many. I've got 5.
And it's also one of those things where, again, as we'll get into later on, these things change, numbers go up, numbers go down. But how much of anything behind those numbers is really changing?
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah,
especially if they drop another patch and it is there's another game-breaking bug introduced.
We'll see. I almost feel like that. I mean, I'm no game developer. I feel like I have to say that up front. But I almost feel like it would have been in their best interests to try and get some big top-level, very visual improvement into this patch, even if it's something like really arbitrary, just so they could allow people to go and make those inevitable side-by-side videos, the before and after videos, and say, hey, look, this is something we can see they tangibly improved. It's one of these things where I bet they're working their asses off behind the scenes to get things working in ways that we can't see yet, and I bet they're laying the foundations for further improvements that wouldn't have been possible with the work they're doing now. It just doesn't translate that well to people who really want to see something happen. Again, game development isn't as simple as, oh, let's fix this now and give it to people tomorrow. But yeah, I don't know. Just the thought I had.
No,
damage control.
I think you're right. I think they should have done something like that, especially a visual thing would have allowed people to, like you say, look at it, to compare it and to be happy about it. I'm now of the opinion that we're not going to see anything major until probably the beginning of Q4 when the
you think summer's going to be quiet. Well, I guess it depends on your definition of major.
Oh, I think I'm sure they drop some hot fixes for bugs and here and there, but I wouldn't be surprised if they for the launch of the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X versions, they do something a little bit special, because they're going to really want those to pop. And
They
I
will.
imagine
They
that.
will, yeah.
I imagine now that they've got a team who are focusing on making the game run amazingly well on those platforms, and
They do run
ironing
well
out-
on those platforms, though, in terms of performance.
in terms of performance, but they need to. The visuals and stuff aren't very good. They need to sort the visuals out. So the frame rates are fine. The frame rate's like 60 FPS. I think even on the Xbox Series S, the frame rates are pretty solid.
Yes, the Series S was one of those ones where it was like a stealth console in terms of how good it was relative to the Series X and the PS5. I think it took a resolution hit, but held its frame rate surprisingly well.
But I think visuals like ray traced graphics and things. I think the lighting and stuff. I think that's what they need to hit with the next gen.
But
stuff.
how can they improve that stuff and include things that aren't there to begin with in terms of like ray tracing and so on and so forth, and maintain that performance?
Well, no, they need to do the sort of thing they've done with other versions, where they do a 30 frame per second version, which includes ray tracing, or which we've already seen. But do you know what? I would be tempted. I'd probably go for the pretty version. Over 60 FPS.
I mean,
personally.
you switched Spider-Man Miles Morales over to 60 frames per second, very briefly on your PlayStation 5, and you thought it looked disgusting.
Yeah, it was horrible. I absolutely hated it. And immediately switched it back to pretty mode.
I think you've made it clear, if nothing else, that you have some of the strangest eyes known to man.
It was nasty. It was too swishy.
It was too swishy, yeah. It was like when you watch The Hobbit in 48 frames, just too swishy.
Oh, that was horrible.
Too swishy.
That was far
Everything
too
looks
swishy.
like it's sped up. Too swishy.
But all of that aside, Jamie,
Yeah.
we should give a little shout out to some really special people who are our Patreons.
Oh, yes, let's do it.
Or patrons. I always get that wrong. Our patrons, I think they are, over at patreon.com/SuperShow. And they are the people who really do keep the lights on, keep us coming back every week and making more podcasts. Without them, we would have stopped doing this a long time ago out of exhaustion, lack of funds, etc.
All of the above.
All of the above. So let me give a shout out to AIM, Aaron Cameron, Athletic Gravy, Brett Z, aka Shellshock, Hacksaw Book Reed, Jesper Camdell Nielsen, Javella Cujo, Leo Murger, Lonnie Thompson, Matt Howie, Magic Grits, Martin Skihan, Mindful Pig, Nathan Pears, Scary Omen, Sean Kennedy, Slippy Meat, Starfall Kid, The Mad Rad, Zach Cream, and the Big Dogs, Freddie K Official, Manuel Guerrero, Peaswad, and The Dude Abides. You are all absolute legends, and we really do appreciate you. You wonderful, wonderful people. And if you'd like to join our Discord, our Patreon, you can get little bonuses like a link to our Discord, or you can chat to us live. We do some extra content.
I mean, you make it sound like a porn thing when you say, when you put that smarty voice on.
It's like that American announcer. We'll do live. I don't know.
Oh, that's Bill O'Reilly, right? Or whatever his name was.
Oh, we'll do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. That's what he says.
Yeah.
I shouldn't swear. My kid just went to bed a little while ago. He's probably still awake.
I thought you were going to say that your kid's right next to you or something like that. Your kid's like 3 feet.
No. I'll get told off. But yes, thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Truly, truly appreciate it.
Yeah. You're the reason we keep the way we keep the lights on, and the reason Jonesy keeps buying CD Projekt Red stock. So make of that what you will. If you need to pull your pledge as a direct result, I completely understand.
It's a good thing it's cheap. What can I say? So let's do a comment of the week.
Let's do it.
And then let's do that way. Let's do it that way around. So comment of the week comes from Bill Caesar, who says, was just about to go to bed. Looks like I now need to make a cuppa and grab some munchies. Hope you fellas are doing well. And that was because our podcast dropped. And he was going to go to sleep, Jamie, but he's 2 hours he must have stayed up for. He listened to the whole thing.
I was going to say, but that's a strong commitment there from Bill, because to look at a 2-hour upload, something that's just gone live before you go to sleep and think, I'm staying up for that, it takes some doing.
I have mad respect for you, Bill. That is commitment. That's a 2-hour commitment, and we love you for it.
Hell yeah.
3 hours if Chris is here, probably. So
exactly. And shout out to anyone that makes that time commitment, whether you do it all in one chunk, as some of you do, even on the night of, or whether you do it out over the course of weeks, if not months, in as big a doses as you can handle us for. We appreciate it.
Even if it's 15 seconds on double speed, and that's all you can do at one go.
That's all I do.
But I
just watch the first 30 seconds back on double speed to make sure I didn't accidentally drop the C word or something like that inside the first 30 seconds. Think, okay, I'm in the clear. Moving on.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, Jamie, I need to hear what you've been playing this week, mate, because I know you've been playing something a little bit new.
It is a little bit new. It was new last week as well, but I have played significantly more of it, which is to say I've finished.
I want to say you'd played an hour or half an hour.
Literally that. Do you remember I had an absolute nightmare getting it started for various reasons? That game that we are talking about is Hitman 3, the brand new game from IO Interactive and the final entry into Hitman's World of Assassination trilogy before IO go on to do James Bond and whatever else they do. I finished that game now, which isn't saying much. Because,
wow.
Well, it's not saying much. So the way Hitman works is that there are, in each new Hitman game, before DLC or anything like that, there are 6 new missions, so 6 new locations. And, I mean, some of my first runs on these places might take me, like, half an hour, some of them.
Oh, okay.
Others, like, approaching maybe an hour. But really, if you were to... Hitman 3 is not really a game that you say, oh, I completed Hitman 3. Technically, you did complete Hitman 3, but it's not really that kind of game.
No, the idea is you play through each level multiple times, do different things.
Exactly.
Different ways of doing each one, yeah.
I'm in the process of doing that now. I got a couple of escalation contracts, they're called, where you replay these missions over and over again with increasing numbers of targets and specific, like more specifics around how you have to kill them and what kind of rules you have to follow. And just trying to get challenges done, get my mastery ranking up on all of those levels. And I think the key thing is I really like most of those levels. I think a lot of people by now will have heard sort of the highlights. We've all seen that first Dubai level that you sort of skydive onto. Then there's that English estate, that English manor with the murder mystery in the middle of it. The level in China, which is kind of this neon-drenched nighttime level. First time I think it's rained in the recent trilogy, which is actually kind of cool, you know, stylistically and sort of thematically. It feels pretty nice. There's some really intriguing levels in there. And Joe, I've seen some debate back and forth online about whether or not people sort of like these levels. There are a couple of ones that have become a little bit controversial. Berlin and the final level. I won't say kind of why they're controversial, but some people have drawn some question marks over them. I think for me, though, as a person that's played every single Hitman game at this stage and sees Hitman 3 as kind of like a bookend to this recent trilogy that encapsulates everything that's come before it rather than just a standalone thing, I like them. The Hitman series has always had this problem that I get. You can probably imagine just looking at it, which is that, okay, one of the things that most Hitman levels, if not all Hitman levels, need is something of a clean slate. 47 has to go in at the beginning of a level and come out at the end of the level in the same state because he kind of needs a fresh start to go in and do his thing the next time, right? Like, you need a premise that allows this bald dude who anyone in real life could notice just by looking at him, like, yeah, that's the guy. It's the guy with the barcode in the back of his fucking head. But he needs to be able to fly around the world, go to fucking 18 different countries per game, and shoot people and get away with it. It's kind of like The Simpsons, how no matter what mad shit happens, they still need to be The Simpsons at the end of the episode, so they can still be The Simpsons at the start of the next one.
Right.
Hitman's the same in that respect, and that really restricts them in terms of what they can do for story. And they've tried to, you know, in many different ways over the years, craft the story that, you know, ties the various missions and targets together. They've done multiple times that thing where, all the targets might seem separate and distinct, but maybe there's something connecting them all.
Ooh,
they've done that about 17 times. But ultimately, like, they struggle with this idea of, okay, we want the story to have some repercussions and some implications for 47. We want his actions to catch up with him at some point, but how do you do that and keep it as a Hitman game? And the answer for a long time was you don't. And then they tried a little bit with Hitman Absolution, which unfortunately coincided with a bit of a genre shift towards a more stealth, action-adventure-oriented sort of linear game at times that tried to maintain some Hitman essence, but failed by most accounts, certainly as hardcore fans go. And long story short, they've gone back to that well a little bit in this game, where they've tried to mix up the mission structure and the way that stories are tied into the missions in a way that creates a little bit more of a unique story for 47 and the people around him, and enables them to come to some kind of a conclusion and wrap up the arcs of lots of different characters in a way that's not just, here's a cutscene in between every mission that's nothing to do with the shit you just did, which is what people might have experienced in Hitman 1 especially. That's why a lot of people thought these recent Hitman games didn't have a story, when they absolutely do.
I must admit, I didn't think they had a
Yeah.
story. I've only played the first one. I think I played one mission in the second one, and I assumed it was like, no, these are just little sandboxes where you can go.
There's totally a story. There's a lot of cutscenes. There's a lot of voice acting. There are a bunch of characters. They went for it. I think people who are critical of it have said that they are levels that, because the story is more tied to what you're doing, and certainly inside the story, they are pushing stories that take place inside the missions much harder than they ever have as well. That maybe these are missions that are more suited to 3 to 5 playthroughs compared to the hundreds that people might have done in places like Paris and Sapienza. I get that criticism, but to me, it's not a criticism, if that makes sense.
I see what you mean. It's interesting because would you say that 3 is? Because I'm trying to think of my experience that I've had with the first ones. So one of the issues I had with Sapienza, and I could be wrong about this, was when I played that mission a couple of times, and I thought, okay, what they've done here is very clever. They've effectively created multiple routes through that they'd envisaged each route you could play through that game. Like you get the flower truck, then you use that as your way in, or you go the other way through the back streets where you sort of sneak in like a spy. But they'd thought through all of those things and got to a point where, I don't know, let's say that there was 5 or 6 ways that you could actually get and do that mission. And I thought that was really cool. I really liked how they did that. When I played some of the missions in 2, it felt much more like it was a sandbox that you had a lot more free reign over. And I didn't like that as much.
Interesting.
Is that, I don't even know if that's fair, but that's kind of how it felt. So is 3 more of a, you're a hitman, it's a sandbox, do what you want? Or are there kind of these threads through each that you can follow?
It's really, in a lot of respects, it's the same as 1 and 2 in that, so I think what you're referring to is in the first game they were called opportunities, and in the second and third game I think they're called mission stories. And essentially every mission will have a certain amount of them. You'll usually start it by walking up to a certain area, maybe overhearing a conversation or finding a piece of intel.
That's right, yeah.
And in 47 we'll go, oh shit, that's a way to get to this target or to kill this person or whatever it is. And Diana will walk you through various steps. It's actually the thing that gamifies those sandboxes the most out of any of the mechanics, because it actually puts markers like, get this suit, get the screwdriver, sabotage this, blah, blah, blah. It walks you through them. Those are still present. But I'd say that these levels, I can't back this up with any real data, it's just what it felt like to me, had the least of them. I think some of the missions in the Hitman 3 only have maybe like 3 or 4 of them per mission, per location.
Okay.
And they are the most narratively intense, and also there are times now where it really feels like you're pushed in certain directions to experience certain ones. Like, the easiest example I can give is that the percentage of people who must go through that English estate mission without doing the private detective route must be tiny. Because you start outside the mansion, you run up to it, the first thing you see is the mission story beginning for the private detective route. So it's clear then that's what they want you to do. Kind of reminds me, do you remember Paris? Like, there must be an overwhelming amount of people who, if they did one playthrough of Paris, they probably did the Helmut Kruger route, where you kill the model, you go and get your makeup done, you walk the catwalk, and then you get the private one-on-one meeting with the female target in Paris. Yep. So,
well, they say, "Wow, you look amazingly similar to the guy in the poster," or something like that.
Which is like, that's the other thing I've got to shout out, like Hitman 4, because that game has like a sense of humor. Like, you just reminded me that obviously there's this weird, the funny running joke that there's a model called Helmut Kruger and he looks exactly like 47, so people are complimenting how much you look like him. Then there's this mission later on in Hokkaido. It's like this high security hospital, basically, in Japan, and you've checked in there. And there's another guy walking around who has just had plastic surgery to make himself look like Helmut Kruger. And if you go and find this guy and walk into him, he gets angry because he thinks that you've had plastic surgery to look like Helmut Kruger before he could have it. He's like, you've stolen my idea. It's got a very funny sense of humor. There's a lot of a surprising amount of levity, considering how potentially dark those subject matters can become.
Right.
Which
Hitman game is it? Which Hitman game is it where you there's like a really lush house on a beach and there's with all cameras around it? It's like a smart house.
Oh, you're thinking of I think it's called it's basically the intro / tutorial mission of Hitman 2. It's New Zealand.
Right.
I think it's called Hawksmoor Bay or something like that. And yeah, it's you basically start on the beach in like a wetsuit. You run up. It's this house that's sort of like isolated on the beach. You get some intel, and then the targets arrive with a bunch of security.
Ah, that's right. I liked it. I thought that was a very cool one.
You played that one. You probably played that first at the Hitman 2 launch party. That was where because obviously that's the first mission in the game. It's what we were playing a lot of the time on that event. Yeah,
that was very cool. I enjoyed that. I thought it was very good.
It's a cool one.
Hitman 3 is a strange one for me. Like I really want to play it, but I know that if it's anything like 1 and 2, I'll fall off them so fast it'll probably be completely pointless. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, there are cheaper ways to figure out if you like the Hitman formula than just straight up buying Hitman 3. Like, I'd sooner tell you to go and reinstall Hitman 2, which I think you own, and see if you like it. Because
that's like for sure.
If you fall off Hitman 2 after half an hour, then don't buy Hitman 3. It really is that simple. Like,
no, absolutely.
So, like, yeah. But for anyone that, again, I guess is remotely interested, I'm super positive on Hitman 3. I think great way to wrap up that series. And if you can get all those levels in one place because you're in the previous 2, just go for it. Like, it's great to have installed on your PC or your PlayStation or Xbox. Just jump back into, do a quick run. I love that about it.
Do you know what I nearly did today? Someone tweeted at me one of those things like, "Oh, what are your 6 favorite games?" And I was tempted to put Hitman 1 on there.
Like Codename 47, Hitman 1.
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I remember, it's one of those things where it's tough when you have those things. Is my memory of this game good because it's a memory, and you're a different person, it's a different time, which is true of every game. But I wasn't quite sure if I should. But I remember like loving Hitman 1. But actually, what's funny is the missions I didn't like toward the end of the game were the ones that they the modern games are most similar to.
Okay.
Well, not so. I mean, not as bad. Like some of the ones at the end of the game get ridiculous. They get just like third-person action shooter type things, which is not what you
I'm
want.
going to guess you most fondly remember the one that's in like Chinatown or something. The one where you can snipe your targets. I forget where.
Yeah, the first level.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Well, because that was one that I was playing with my brother, and we were walking around with this briefcase with a sniper rifle in, and we were like, "What are we supposed to do? There's nothing that tells you what to do." And then I said, "If this game is cool, if this is like a legit cool game, we'll need to get to the top of a building." And we walked around and found a lift, got in it, took us to the top of the building, sniped the dude, got out of there, and we were like, "This game's incredible."
Yeah,
and then you do the hotel mission. Which is, I don't know if you remember that, but you can't go. There's a metal detector as you go into the hotel. There's a guy that you've got to take out, and you can do it one way by like you've got a box of roses which has got a shotgun inside, but you've got to figure out how to get the shotgun. You've got to get the roses because you couldn't take a gun in with you.
They do that. Yeah,
and that was brilliant. That mission was.
They do that exact same trick at the beginning of Hitman 2: Silent Assassin, where like
metal with a metal detector.
I don't think it's a metal detector. I think it's a frisk, but you can hide something in a bouquet of flowers. It's the same as that. There are metal detectors in some level. I always remember there's a metal detector in one of the levels in Blood Money, and one of the tactics we used to do is that you could go into the level with your stuff in a briefcase, go to one of the corners, and just throw the whole briefcase over the wall, go to the metal detector, run and get your briefcase.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, good series. And you know what's funny? It's like you mentioned how it was the free-form approach to that sniping assassination you did in the first mission of Codename 47 that made you and your brother like Hitman. You can still do that in Hitman. Like, I did a mission the other day, one of the DLC levels for Hitman 2. I forget what it's called. It's set on basically a fancy island resort. And I noticed there was a challenge of, like, get to the top of the radio tower and snipe all 3 targets. So I was like, fuck, I'm doing that. So literally, I went in with a sniper and a briefcase. I got one disguise because I was like, I don't want to have to shoot the people who guard the radio tower. I just want to get their disguise and get through. Climbed the ladder, got to the top, sniped all 3 targets and ran out and had completed the level in like 5 minutes.
Oh, nice. I actually want to say there's one in the second Hitman, the new one, this trilogy, the second one, where you have to shoot the Formula 1 driver.
Yeah, the racer. It's actually a chick, I think, that target. But you can kill her just by shooting the car she's driving as she drives around.
Right. Because I remember trying to do that on the. I think that was at the event to play a
I remember,
play the game as well. But I was horrendous. Like,
they have snipers now that if you half squeeze the trigger, it slows down time. Makes that much easier.
I was going to say that was kind of rough when I first did that, and you couldn't. It was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So I'm going to keep my catch up really short because I don't think it really bears talking about too much. But
I'm fucking curious based on what I've got on this piece of paper in front of me. So take as much time as you need.
I have a weird thing that sometimes I just really want to play a certain type of game, and I've been playing a lot of Ghost of Tsushima, and but I'm not going to talk about. I've probably bored people with that at the moment. Really enjoying that game. Still think it's fantastic. But I wanted something different, and I wanted something which wasn't very that. And I wanted to say a bit freeform, and I happened to go on Steam just to like look at what was available. And one of the things that popped up to me, this is literally yesterday, so I only played a few hours of this, was the fact that Postal 4, which is in early access, had their third patch. They called the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday patch, and the Wednesday patch was released yesterday. And so I was like, do you know what? I've played Postal like a tiny bit. Let me see what Postal's about if you just sit down from the start and play that game. It's obviously, like I said, in early access, so it's not finished.
Yes,
but
we did play it at ATG, Steph and I, on a live stream.
Did you?
We played it like the day it came out though, so that's over a year and many, many patches ago. So I'm curious to know what you thought.
It was. It felt very old school, like an old school type of game. It felt very dated. It looked very dated. I want to say that the dude who plays the main character almost sounds like the guy who plays the alien from Destroy All Humans. Like he's got a really 90s or like noughties video game voice.
Okay.
Like he's like, hey, let me go over here and do this. He's like,
I always remember it as almost like a Duke Nukem kind of voice.
Yeah, no, to be fair, yeah, it's that sort of thing as well. Like it's a strong American accent where he's like, meh. But it's a weird game. Like I didn't really know what to expect because I'd never tried to play that game outside of like just run around and piss on people. And
you can still do that.
You can do that, but there are missions as well. And it's like, so I started out and I was like, okay, I'm going to try and play this game without hitting anyone, hurting anyone, doing anything. I'm going to try and do the game. And the first thing you're supposed to do is like find a job. And so you go to the job center and then this horrible guy's like, I've got these 3 horrendous jobs for you to do. And I started doing them, but it's the most weak source kind of missions design and things. But it's fair enough. It's not really supposed to be that sort of game, is it? It's just a game to have a laugh and...
Well, for I don't know. Maybe I think for you and me, maybe for some people, less so. I don't know.
I was hoping for it to be a little bit more of a crazy fun time, and it just felt a little. But it's in early access, so it's not really fair to judge it on how it plays at the moment. I think it needs a bit more, development time because I think it's technically still alpha. So
I might have to look that up and see kind of what was new and what was added. It was in a really weird spot when we played it back in the day. Well, it had literally just come out, like the first ever public release version of it.
Because I was reading up on it a little bit, and it was saying that Postal 3 was made by different people and was apparently awful, and so this game is now made by the guys who made Postal 2, and they weren't even going to call it Postal 4 because they said it was. Did they want to completely ignore the fact that Postal 3 even existed?
And some weird Russian thing, wasn't it? Postal 3, like some Russian publisher was involved.
Right. But I think fair play to them to trying to get back to making a game that their fans love. And hey, I'm going to stick with it and see how it plays and play a bit more of it. Like I said, I only played a few hours yesterday, but it's fun. It's fine. It controls all right. You can shoot people and stuff.
You can piss on people. You can chop their heads off. You can steal little granny scooters and drive around and run people over and all sorts.
So one thing that did happen, which I'll say, is I was driving on a little scooter and I ran someone over. Or no, I nearly ran someone over and they like screamed and ran.
Yeah.
And then I did run someone over and the policeman I'd just driven past was like, hey, get over here. And then started running after me and I drove off. And then I want to say that another cop then saw me and was like, hey, here he is. We got to get him. And for a minute I thought, wow, this has got better AI than Cyberpunk.
Oh, no.
Which I was then like, fair play to them. Like, they've got, the AI seems to be all right.
Oh dear, you're sad but true.
Yeah, so
Good
I
heavens.
apologise. CDPR, I apologise, but it is what it is. Anyway, hey, that's it. That's all I've played. Apart from, like I said, a bit more of Tsushima, but I'm not going to get into that.
I'll hopefully have some more stuff to talk about next week because I'm nearly done with something big. I'm in the. I'm getting there. I'm getting close.
I'm just wondering, what should we talk about first? Should we go in order, or should we kick off with something else?
I think let's go in order. I feel like it's clearly on a lot of people's minds. It's the thing that we were talking about the most before we actually hit record for whatever reason. I don't know how much we understand it. But we'll try. We'll try. It's a story, right? Like it's happening. It's hip hop and happening.
So, if you hadn't have enough to talk about stocks and shares already, you're in for a treat. Because today, so we're recording this on Thursday night. It is about 9 o'clock at the moment. And it's been a very exciting week, Jamie, for GameStop.
It has.
The American-based video game company. Because... So, okay, let me give people the quick rundown in case they don't know. So effectively what happened with GameStop was it is obviously an outlet shop that's kind of like Game in the UK or Electronics Boutique.
It's a retailer.
It's a retailer. They have different stores. They sell video games. Not a great business to be in this day and age anyway. And then you get COVID. It gets even worse. But it was looking like they were going to go out of business completely last year. But they got bought by, I can't remember who it was. They got snapped up by someone else who was then going to try and turn it around and make it an online, like using the name and everything, was going to make it an online retailer and this sort of thing that could rival Amazon. This was the big plan, right? Was to completely do a 180 and make GameStop a successful online retailer. The issue with that was after that happened and these guys took over on the board and they were going to, do really well with this, the stock price kind of ticked up a little bit. And apparently a load of Wall Street guys said, ha ha ha, nice try. This is never going to happen. What we're going to do is short your stock. And so this is the start of January. So effectively shorting stock is where, in case people haven't seen The Big Short, shorting stock is simply where you borrow stock from people who own it and you sell it to other people. And then you act as the middleman. And then what happens is if that stock price goes down in value whilst you are the middleman, you then buy it back from the market and sell it back to the person who you originally bought it off because they still own stock in it. You've got to give it back. But if the stock's gone down in value, obviously it's cheaper for you to buy it back to sell it to the owner. So you make money.
I think sometimes with shorting, like the easiest way for my brain to process it is just to say, you're betting that the stock's going to go down.
Yes,
you're
betting
that
it's going to go down.
It's going to lose value.
There is a weird thing with shorting though, because if normally with stocks, if you think about it, if you buy something which is worth $10 and it goes down to zero, you lose $10. The weird thing with shorting is you're betting that it's going to go down. So if the stock goes up, you could actually lose, you could lose an infinite amount of money because that stock price could go infinitely high, but you still have to buy that stock back and give it to the person who owned it. So your risk is massive. It can be massive, right? Step in, Reddit, and a whole bunch of small investors, people like me. I've got an app on my phone that allows me to buy individual stocks and things. As I said, own 5 shares in CD Projekt. These guys on Reddit and these sort of small investors decided, you know what, we're not going to let you make a whole load of money out of shorting GameStop. We are going to buy GameStop stock. And so you get a rush to buy it, forces the price up. And so let me give you just a couple of numbers here. So the previous peak, just as an example of GameStop, was they were worth $60 a share in 2008, right? That went up to $469 per share this morning at 10 a.m. So that is that's like a 983% increase in its highest. So it wasn't even at that earlier in January. It was at something like $20 or something like that. So that was the huge, almost 1,000% increase in the price. And this effectively is the fight between the small guy and Wall Street, because the Wall Street hedge funds are trying to make a load of money out of shorting this stock. But Jamie, they've actually lost billions, the hedge funds, because they effectively have to pay to hold on to these short positions. And it's cost them so much money to hold these positions that the little guys have actually beaten a lot of these dudes, and they've made the hedge funds sell their shorts to cover their positions, and they've lost billions in doing so.
Yes, I think Business Insider estimated that around $5 billion has been lost on by GameStop shorters in the year of 2021. I think it was over $800 million on Tuesday alone of this week that we're recording this, lost by company or individuals or hedge funds or investors that were trying to short GameStop stock. I guess the other thing that I kind of picked up during all of this is that the reason these price increases go up so fast and so dramatically, it's like Reddit and the Wall Street Bets subreddit and all the small investors around the world who play a part of it obviously are doing their thing. But the other thing that happens is you end up with what's called, I think, a short squeeze.
Yeah.
Which is that, so let's say Wall Street Bets, for example, will start pumping money into GameStop. The value, GameStop's value will go up, the share prices will go up, the stock price will go up, and the companies that hold shorts in those companies, the people that hold shorts in the company, essentially then have to have a choice of cashing out, basically paying what they owe, admitting that they've lost money and can't compete and getting out of there, which some of them have done, or doubling down. And the ones that double down are the ones that say, okay, we've lost a shitload of money to this in theory, but we still believe that it's going to go down eventually, so we're not going to give up our position. And they borrow more to reshort the stocks, which then makes go zoop, like straight up again, because technically you now have more people spending more money on that stock, even if it's the people themselves backing the original decisions they've made. But like Jonesy said, some hedge funds, for example, haven't been able to keep up and have had to lose their position and give up their shorts and pay the excess that they owed because the value of GameStop stock was so much higher than it was when they shorted it. One hedge fund, for example, had to accept a $2.7 billion cash infusion to cover its position.
That's absolutely insane.
Yeah, there's been so much talk about this, Jonesy. I don't know I don't know how you feel, but like I've been struggling to keep up. Like the narrative has changed so much in that, like, is this kind of like a like a good guys versus bad guys thing where you've got the Wall Street billionaires and the hedge fund managers against the little guys who are rallying together and power of the people, or is this some weird thing that's all a big meme or a joke that got out of control? Is there anything about this that breaks any kind of laws, which it doesn't seem like there is based on some people's advice, but certainly there are lots of people in financial advisory positions and in the media and stuff like that who aren't happy about this because their Wall Street buddies are losing money. It's so multifaceted and it's been rolling for so long that sitting now to this podcast, it seems hard to encapsulate is what I'm saying.
Do you know what I think is brilliant? I think it's brilliant. The whole, the stock market in general, I mean, is largely bullshit. Like so much of the value of stocks and shares and how companies trade and companies that, they're worth this or they're worth that or their share goes up, their share price goes down is just like ludicrous.
Jonesy, go back to the beginning of the podcast. Why did CD Projekt Red's stock price go up? Because
Elon Musk.
Because a man who makes electric cars did a tweet.
Yes, exactly. And it's because it's all about, like, I suppose in a lot of this is if people feel confident that something's going to go up, then they buy it. But then that's not just you doing that. There's millions of people around the world or thousands of people doing it. And so it drives the price up and then the price goes up. So people want to be in, so they buy in. So the idea that this is any different to that is a load of rubbish. Like there's such skeezy goings on in the stock market. Like anyway, I think this is the little man fighting back against the Wall Street who make epic amount of money over, just betting and guessing and doing whatever. And I think it's good, which leads us to actually then, because, when you think of that, when you think of the little guy beating the big guy, taking from the rich to feed the poor, you think of Robin Hood, don't you, Jamie?
You do think of Robin Hood, Jonesy.
And in actual fact, there was an app, or I don't know if it's a website, or an app, but called Robin Hood, which was an investment platform for people who weren't traders, but who want to do like little day trades here and there and put some money in that people were using in order to buy stock in GameStop. And one of the things that happened, and it didn't happen to me because I wasn't going to actually buy it, but I use an app called Trading 212. And on Robinhood, on Trading 212, and apparently a whole load of other platforms, they actually stopped people being able to buy GameStop stock. They said, do you know what? We think it's too risky for our clients. What a load of bollocks. So what we want to do is we're going to stop you buying. You can sell, but you can't buy any more stock, which then forced down the price of the stock in relatively short amount of time. So there was an article from BBC. I think it was, well, you shared it with me just before we got on this podcast. So not from too long ago.
Yeah.
Effectively pointing out that because these apps have stopped the small investor people buying any stock, it's let the price fall, which is what the hedge funds and the traders and things want because they've got a short position. So it seems like there's some dodgy insider dealing going on, which is criminal in the financial sector. You can't do insider trading. And we've actually now, this is brilliant. You've got AOC, Donald Trump Jr., Ted Cruz and Dave Portnoy and Elon Musk, who are all agreeing on Twitter, who are sort of, well, by agreeing, we say like just tweeting, I agree, in the case of Elon Musk, have agreed that the apps that are stopping small investors from purchasing are actually doing something which is not okay. And it could be that they're fiddling the system because they're trying to stop their Wall Street friends from losing a crap load of money.
Yeah. And Robinhood, I think, has been uniquely targeted because it was the app that I think saw arguably the biggest boom in sort of activity with regards to everything going on with GameStop and AMC and so on and so forth. I've got in here a page in front of me now that mobile downloads for Robinhood this week, this was a tweet from earlier today, most single-day downloads, highest number of DAUs, daily active users, 2.6 million, because it was ranked number one overall in iOS App Store, and Reddit ranked number 2 overall. And now they've kind of blown it in many respects. A huge amount of faith lost, incredible amount of bad publicity on what is quickly becoming what feels like in our little bubble, at least, Jonesy, like one of the biggest stories of the year to emerge so far that's not about life on planet Earth and the coronavirus and so on and so forth. It's also worth noting that I was going to say there was a report earlier from Vice, I think, that over 50% of Robinhood users owned GameStop stock. So it was an app that seemed to be, by most accounts, almost expressly used for that purpose. So kind of crazy, the moves being made today.
Can I get here's the blurb from the app I use. They said, due to buyer restrictions placed by our intermediary and every major execution venue worldwide, GameStop will be placed in close only mode, so you can't buy any new shares. And the price, since we've been talking, it has gone from, I think it was at like 250, it's down to 197. This definitely seems like some dodgy goings on, and I'm all for the little man standing up and getting a little bit of change in their pocket. Why should the big guys be the only ones to do that? I think it's skeezy. Can I also read you the tweet from AOC? Because
let's do it. Why not? Let's load up.
She said, this is unacceptable. We now need to know more about Robinhood app's decision to block retail investors from purchasing stock while hedge funds are freely able to trade the stock as they see fit. As a member of the Financial Services Committee, I'd support a hearing if necessary. And then Ted Cruz has retweeted that and said he fully agrees. Crazy. And then Dave Portnoy as well says, turns out Robinhood app is the biggest frauds of them all. Democratizing finance for all is what they say they do, except when we manipulate the market because too many ordinary people are getting rich. But I think this is the start of the end, mate. I think this is people realizing they actually can make a difference. Yeah,
fundamentally, yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. Wall Street Bets was a big community of people, I think bigger than people had imagined. When I first was looking at it maybe a handful of days ago, it was on 2.2 million users. I think that subreddit is probably significantly bigger now as a result of all this exposure it's gotten. But the other thing now is you've also got a huge number of people who have been reminded that actually they actually have a huge amount of power if they work together on certain issues. But you've also probably got a huge amount of people who are now more interested in ever with regards to how this works and how people make money doing this stuff. And whilst not every one of those people will stick, everyone probably has a point in like a day or a week or a month or a year at some point in their life where they go, trading, that people make money doing that. I could make money doing it. I'm good at maths. my arithmetic's pretty straight. Like, everyone has that moment. Don't get me wrong. Same way everyone gets the moment where they go, I'm gonna write a book. Doesn't mean you're gonna write a book. Hate to break it to you. But some people will. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out in that sense. But this may be ridiculous, but at this point we should say we do not condone going out and buying individual stocks in anything, because you probably will lose money. But yes,
don't rush out and just dump all your cash.
Like Jonesy and I have been watching this for a couple of days, but as far as I'm aware, unless you got to keep it in secret from me, Jonesy, neither of us have acted on anything that's happened this week in a financial sense.
I dabble. I think I've got about £100 in stocks and shares just for fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, please don't bet your life away.
It's funny, Jonesy. I was literally, I went down this route. I had a bit of a midlife crisis maybe a month ago, where I was like, one of those things where you have like, there's got to be more to life moments. Maybe you don't have that because
Sure.
you've got the family and the house and all that stuff, but certainly I still have there's got to be more to life moments. And it took me down that road of looking into this stuff. Even ironically looking at Wall Street Bets a little bit and trying to parse all the bizarre terminology and vocabulary they use. I don't understand it. Something about having diamond hands and holding on. That's as much as I can gather. But I inevitably start going on YouTube videos, like interviews with fucking teenage or early 20 millionaires and day traders and stuff like that. And always the same shit happens. You get a video and you're recommended some guy like how I lost $400,000 in one day, and it's just some like point blank interview where a guy's like, yeah, everything was kind of going well, and I lost it all because I realized the only reason I made anything to begin with is because the gambles I made paid off, and then eventually one didn't. I don't get me wrong, there are smart ways of going about this, as there are smart ways of going about anything, and I'm not going to try and draw parallels between trading and investing and say I'm not going to a casino, because one is literally a game of chance and the other has a little bit more going on. But I just think, certainly for me, like, this is never going to be a world that I can truly pass enough to change my life with, So this stuff's fun and fascinating, but all from a safe distance.
Well, that's because that's the thing is, like, traders don't make money from putting money into stocks and shares and then and they make good bets and then they make money. That's not how they make money. They make money because they get a percentage of all the money that you put through them. And so they make money by going, this guy gave me 100 million. I get 2% of him buying X, Y, Z. So he buys that, and then I convince him to actually sell that and then buy this and sell that and buy this and sell that and buy this, and they get a percentage of everything.
It's
every
a
bet that guy
fucking
makes.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, exactly. They don't make any money through like the actual trade. Well, they do if the trade works, but they just make money in every eventuality. But it's not their money in the first place. So,
but even the stay-at-home investors, the people who are actually investing their money into stocks and shares their own money, like.
I think there's probably a lot more of those who lose it than make money doing it.
And that's the thing.
It's like
the people who
it's the Darren Brown thing. Did you ever see the Darren Brown thing where he told someone to pick a horse and he was going to tell them which horse to pick in a horse race for like 8 races straight and who to bet on? And they bet on the same. They did exactly what he said every time. And by the end of it, they'd won like 10 grand. And they were like, "Oh my goodness, this is incredible. How have you done this?" And it turned out that what he did was he started out with like 64 people, or however many he needed, and he told them to bet on every horse available in that race. Then all the ones that won, he took to the next race and he told them to bet on every horse. And all the ones that won, he took to the next race. So he ended up with one person who'd won every race and like 60 people that had lost money. And then they only showed you the story of the one.
Yeah, because the people that lose all their money and all their life savings in this game, they probably don't ask for interviews about it. They don't.
No, they gave them the money. This was the trick.
No, but I'm saying in general, it's the same as. It reminds me of I can bring it back to games actually here. Sometimes I'll be playing Warzone with the crew I usually run with, and there was one game the other day where. As a team, we killed about, I think we killed like in the 30s, like in terms of the total number of kills we got between us 4 as a quad team. And then we got killed by a team, and we were all really angry. Like, oh man, they were so good. Why are we getting matched up with these people that's so much better than us? Shit matchmaking, skill-based matchmaking, Diamond 1 lobbies, everything under the sun. And then we made the observation I would say I made the observation, but I don't want to sound like I'm some like holier than thou guy who makes snarky remarks in the wake of defeat in a video game because he wants to be friends with that person. But I was like, do you know why this feels worse than it is? Because we get so hung up over the one team that were better than us, we completely forget about the 8 teams we fucking destroyed.
Yes,
and like it's I guess it's like investing. Like the people who lose all their money don't spend their lives telling everyone about how they lost their money because they lost all their money. They're embarrassed. They don't want to tell. They're not going to write a book about I lost all my money and here's how you can do it too. They're not going to put a course together about how they lost all their money. You're going to see interviews and books and courses from the people and movies made about people who made millions and billions and so on and so forth. Like.
Do you know what? That's actually one of my favorite examples of when you ever see adverts on YouTube. So before, you might have even seen before this podcast, if you're watching it on YouTube, they'll have an advert where they say, if you sign up to my course, I'll show you how I made $400,000, but in 1 month, and I paid off my mortgage. I did this, I did that, and I was thinking, then why are you making a course about how? Why don't you just go and do it again,
bro? This isn't exactly the same thing. So I understand before anyone gets too angry. There's levels to it, and there's theory, and there's teaching, and blah 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 blah. But I used to go out with a girl who wanted to be an actress, and she liked to read books about acting, like acting theory and acting craft, and how you can improve your performances. And I used to joke with her and say, "Do you know who hasn't written one of those books? Meryl Streep. Do you know why? She's got fucking 4 Oscars above the fireplace. Like, she doesn't need to write a book. Like, who's out here getting roles saying, God, I'm so busy, but do you know what? I'm going to turn down all my roles for the next 6 months so I can write a book about how to be a good actor. Just go and be a good actor. No one does it." Oh, no.
So it's the people that didn't make it who are
exactly.
writing the books.
Those that can't do teach. And that's not trying to be too harsh, but yeah.
That's why I guess you have a lot of stock, like people running how to pick stock courses, like online, and you think maybe just go pick stock if you're so good at it, and then just like make your money that way.
You probably wouldn't need the money you made from this book or this course. You actually made as much money as we thought you did in that.
Apparently, here's my financial tip: diversified mutual funds. Apparently, they're the only way to go. That's what you want to do.
I don't even know what that means. I'm just waiting until. Actually, I'm not going to say that. That's morbid. So let's move on.
Do you know what we should talk about now? We should actually talk about some more games because PlayStation Plus, Jamie.
PlayStation Plus.
If you've got a PlayStation, they want to put a smile on your face in February, because they are releasing Destruction All Stars, Control Ultimate Edition, and Concrete Genie to PlayStation Plus members. Great month. Sick.
Great month. One of the happiest I've ever been at the PlayStation Plus game announcements for a long time, and for various reasons.
I think Destruction All Stars we obviously talked about last week. It was one of the games when I think was it the week before? No, it wasn't last week, where we talked about the fact that it could have gotten pushed, but it wasn't getting pushed. We knew it wasn't because it was going to be February PlayStation Plus games. And then, of course, Control Ultimate Edition is the version of the game that has the PlayStation 5. Is it an update? I guess it's an update.
This is what's complicated about Control, and this is why some people are pissed off and some people like myself are happy. Control was this very strange case where obviously came out on PC and the Epic Game Store, PlayStation and Xbox, and was a game that seemed on paper to be the perfect fit for a next gen upgrade because the particle effects and more specifically the ray tracing, they worked very closely with Nvidia. It was a huge showcase for ray tracing. In fact, I remember you and Chris went to an RTX event and like the two things you played there were Quake 2 and Control, pretty much. More or less. There might have been a few other things, but it was one of the showcases for ray tracing. But then they basically completely fucked everyone over with the way that this game was going to be re-released for next-gen consoles, because they essentially said there would be no upgrade path, no like free upgrade for owners of Control. Instead, what they were doing and what they claimed they had to do was re-release Control as a completely new SKU, a completely new product that would be called Control Ultimate Edition, which was Control with the DLC, and would be on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. But even if you owned the Control Deluxe Edition, which included, like all the content of the Control Ultimate Edition, you wouldn't get the PS5 upgrade. So there were some people who had already paid for and owned every element that there is to own of Control on their PlayStation 4 that would have to buy everything again to play it on PlayStation 5, which then, unsurprisingly, inspired a lot of people to buy this game for PlayStation 5. I don't think it's even out yet on PS4. The PS5 version's not even out yet, and now we're finding out that not only is it coming out, but it's going to be free.
Do you think there's some element of this whereby they're trying to right a wrong, that they think they screwed over the deluxe edition people, they screwed over the Control people, so they're like, do you know what? How we can fix this? We'll drop it for free for everyone on the PlayStation Plus.
Maybe. It's weird because as someone who held firm, there is something about this that's sort of like it feels like a small victory. It doesn't make me look on Remedy or 505 games in any, in a better light per se, but still I feel like my decision to not cave and spend more money on Control for the PlayStation 5 was justified, was validated by all of this, especially as someone who, was a big Alan Wake fan and really wanted to see the second part of that DLC, the AWE, and and my only option really was to go back, buy the DLC for the PS4 game and play it in backwards compatibility mode on my PS5, even if the PS5 version was out by then. I don't know. I still think there's something to be said, though, for the fact that, like, so many games went the free upgrade path route. So many games are still going the free upgrade path route. They're saying, hey, even if you can only get the PS4 version for now, the PS5 version is going to be waiting for you whenever you come back around. I
love that. I genuinely think that's great.
But it's the best way to go about it. And, I don't know. It's utterly bizarre to me that whether it was Remedy or 505 or something in between, that they felt the need to create an entirely new SKU, an entirely new product, and isolate so many players as a result. I don't know.
I mean, let's be honest. There's going to be people who are annoyed with this. The people who have already bought the Control Ultimate Edition are going to be pissed off because they've already put the money out for that. But that having been said, I think this is a good thing. I think this is good for people to get their hands on a great game. Control is a great game.
One of the best games of 2018.
Yeah, it is easily. Like, I finished it. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the worst looking best games. Like,
that's so wrong. That's so wrong.
It's such a. It doesn't look bad, but when I play that game,
it looks good.
It feels like I'm playing an old game.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't really know either. If anyone gets what I mean, please in the comments say, I get it. Because I've said that to a few people and they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, when I play Control, I'm like, this is a wicked game. They've got some really nice ideas. The maze was like my favourite. Was it Cigarette Maze?
Ashtray.
Maze, something like that. Ashtray, there you go. Ashtray Maze is one of my favourite levels in a game for the past probably something like 10 years or something. But there was just a weird aesthetic to that game that made me think it looked bad.
That's the thing, is that you hinge your argument, or the point of the feeling you get, I should say, not argument necessarily, on the aesthetic. If you were trying to say that it felt old in sort of gameplay terms, because it was almost a throwback to these simpler times of narrative-driven third-person shooters.
Retro.
Yeah, because it's not super linear. There is some sort of there's some backtracking and you can go around different areas and there are side missions and things off the beaten path. But it is still kind of like a very focused, story-driven third-person shooter, which arguably, certainly that genre of games had their time in the sun a little bit before, third-person shooters got co-opted by, Xbox and PlayStation and turned into the biggest games on planet Earth thanks to series like Gears and Uncharted and The Last of Us. But
I also think some of the ways,
I don't know.
Some of the mechanics feels retro as well. Like the way they use some of those telekinetic powers, it feels like the idea for it could have come from a game 5, 6, 10 years earlier.
PsyOps, the Mindgate conspiracy.
Yeah, maybe. But then there's also some of the enemies feel retro to me, like the ones who kind of float the bodies, those dead
even
bodies,
retro, such a
float
weird,
upside.
Yeah.
It is a weird word, but I don't know. If anyone knows what I mean, let me know, because I don't really know. From the day one I played that game, I had the feeling that it had a very certain feel to me, aesthetic, a retro feel to it, and I've never got over it. And no one else seems to agree with me, which just means I'm wrong. But if you do agree with me, if you know what I'm talking about, then please help me out and say, I get what you mean.
I just think
there we go.
That when that game's firing all cylinders, like all the
it's great.
but like the physics and the particle effects and the lighting and the ray tracing and so on. Like when you're picking up a desk and throwing it, and paper and wood is splattering everywhere, and like when everything's kicking off, I don't understand how that aesthetic can be. That's almost like the opposite of an old school aesthetic. Like that's the coolest looking shit.
It is. Then there's my favorite thing about Controller. If you haven't played it, it's the kind of the X-Files like mystery feel to it, which is wicked. Like it's great. The feel, the kind of like the emotive response to the way that game is almost spooky, but in a very much a CIA X-Files kind of spooky way is brilliant. And some of the random little side things you can do in that game that, like the fridge, just I love.
Yeah, very
it's
cool.
It's so cool. It's such a cool game. It's a very
and that's why this is a cool month. Destruction All Stars. I know we talked about it last week, but you'll join me for some of that, right?
I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's I think it, like I said, I don't think it's going to like survive that long, but I'm really keen for playing it.
Yeah,
although no, maybe it will. Maybe it will.
They put out a what are they called? Not PlayStation's version of a direct, a state of play, for that game like a day or two ago. About 7 or so minutes of gameplay, and it looks like one you're going to need to get your hands on to feel for yourself. But I'm picking up a lot of what it's putting down.
I mean, the idea sounds immense to me. It's like, I want to play in a car and then run around and maybe get run over and stuff. That sounds great, but we'll have to wait and see. Concrete Genie, I haven't seen much about that, but I know it's definitely a you and a Chris game for sure.
Wait, you sat on a stream of it at ATG?
Which one? I can't even remember what it is.
Concrete Genie's the kid who gets bullied, so he gets a big paintbrush and starts painting monsters on the wall that he makes friends with.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
That's a you and Chris game, yeah.
Well, you say that. I was the one with the controller in my hands for that stream, and I remember I was having a great time, and you guys were bored out of your mind.
I was quite bored. I'm actually looking at images of it now, and I'm like, did it look that good?
I really liked it. I thought it was charming, and I thought the central idea was kind of fairly simple, but represented in a really smart way. And
wasn't this the one where the bullies are kind of hunting you?
Yeah, they go around. It's like they go around like in a gang, and they kind of see you at points. You have to like run away and hide. From what I remember, even being distracted by the chat as we were all the time back in the day, the bullies or the enemies weren't really the point of that game. It was really just about exploring this little sort of area and painting these monsters and sort of, unleashing your creativity upon the world, Jonesy.
That's my problem. Is I don't have any creativity. So there you go.
Well,
so it's my fault. But no, that is a standout month. Well done, PlayStation. That does sound like a wicked February.
Agreed.
I'll be adding all of those to my library.
Same. It's really cool now that PlayStation have so far with Bugsnax, Maneater, and Destruction All Stars, and Control to a certain extent, have stuck to this thing of like, hey, we're going to get at least one PlayStation 5 game in there per month, because PlayStation 5 games are still a little bit few and far between. So to get a free one per month has been nice so far.
I didn't expect it, I've got to be honest. I thought they would have gone the route of saying, hey, backwards compatibility, you don't need a PlayStation 5 game.
Yeah.
But this is a great reason to keep people who have got PlayStation 5s happy by saying, hey, look, you can keep PlayStation Plus and every month you get to pick up a new PlayStation 5 game. It's also a great way to say to people who are going to buy a PlayStation 5 when they're available, who say, look, the $60, $70 price is prohibitive, and then say, but you can sign up for Plus and get a game every month.
Yeah, exactly. And even the backwards compatibility argument, like, isn't a terrible one. Like, they're not leaning on it, as you said, which is good. But the fact that, like, it's still there, and like, even this month, like, obviously Maneater was the main thing I took notice of, but like Shadow of the Tomb Raider was a game that I hadn't picked up yet, and like, right. I own that now, and I played the first two in that trilogy, and maybe one day I really want to play a Tomb Raider game. I don't know. That's
a good shout. Anyone who does have PlayStation Plus, remember to hop on before February 1st to get, even if you don't download them, just add them to your library, Maneater and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Something else exciting happened last Thursday that we missed out on the podcast, Jamie, which was the Resident Evil, or was it? It was specifically. It did seem to be mainly specifically about Resident Evil Village, but they had a nice little showcase that we couldn't fit in because we were too early in the day.
Yeah, we just missed it.
And you won yourself a shiny fiver.
I did win myself a shiny fiver with a bet that I made with with Chris. I didn't make it with you, but I remember who you agreed with. And
yeah, I thought they would drop an announcement for it, but you were right. You were correct.
So the bet, for anyone wondering or didn't listen last week or just can't remember, was that with regards to the let's call it rumored, but it definitely exists. The in development, okay, let's say a remake of Resident Evil 4. Of course, Resident Evil 2 and 3, and technically Resident Evil have been remade over the course of the last handful of years, and 4 is due at some point. Chris bet that it would be shown or revealed in some way, shape, or form during that showcase, and it wasn't, regrettably. Sad. Wasn't happy to have won that bet. I'll throw that out there.
But hopefully we won't have to wait too long before...
Well, we will. Should we get into it?
Go on then.
Because there's a bunch of Resident Evil news. So, as Jonesy said, there was a showcase last week that, as you pointed out, Jonesy, focused heavily on Resident Evil Village, perhaps also known as Resident Evil 8. I don't know why they keep trying to avoid calling it that. The VIII is literally in the fucking title. It's why you called it Village. You cowards, call it 8.
I don't know what... Okay, what is that? Because they keep saying it's not Resident Evil 8, but it's in the title.
I don't know, bro. I don't know.
We need an insider. We need a
Japanese person.
We need someone to tell us what's going on.
So I had to look this up to be sure. Resident Evil, it is called Resident Evil Village. It's the sequel to Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, even though in Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, they did the same thing where they took the VI and part of the L of evil and highlighted that to make it a 7.
Yeah.
But then I guess they couldn't just stick with that because basically what I'm saying is they've done the same trick 2 games in a row, which is like, hey, what if the words spelled the Roman numerals for the number, except this time they haven't kept the number in the actual name of the game.
But they have, because at the same time they've kept it in the title. It's all very strange.
And it's always stylized that way. Like the cover art is still stylized that way. I don't know. They've lost control, Jonesy. They need to be put in their place. We need to get some. We need to AOC to tweet about this. Put them back in their place.
I'd watch AOC play some Resident Evil 8 Village.
Hey, the way her Twitch career is going, then maybe she will at this point. Who knows? Yeah. The other thing that got announced, well, there are a few things actually. First of all, the release date, which was actually sooner than all three of us predicted. We were thinking more like something like a September. This is going to be a quick turnaround. May 7th, the release date for Resident Evil Village. And they have also confirmed, which is something they hadn't up till now, interestingly, which is that this is a game for current gen and last generation systems. So if you have yet to upgrade to an Xbox Series X or a PS5, still get your hands on your Resi fix. They showed some new gameplay. A lot of what I thought was Resident Evil 4 inspired stuff, which I think we kind of knew about. Because obviously the Village theme is shared between the two. There have been lots of rumours about an increased focus on combat, which is backed up by the fact that there's now a merchant in this game. He's some big fat guy, looks kind of funny to hang around, selling weapons and upgrades. And there's even like a Tetris Resident Evil 4 style inventory management system, which is very cool.
I never like how they do their inventory management in Resi games, but
I
this
kind of
doesn't
do.
look good.
Specifically the inventory?
Fit everything in.
Bro, it was so good in 4. It's like Tetris.
But I can't pack a bag, so I don't know how I'm going to do this.
Jonesy, all you have to do, just move all your eggs out the way and you can fit the RPG in there.
If you came shopping with me, you'd understand why I don't like the sound of this. Because I can't, I'm a nightmare. So it just stresses me out.
Shopping?
But,
What part of shopping? Like putting it in the trolley or putting it in the bag?
Putting it in the bag. Bag and the stuff at the end. I'm an absolute mess.
I just take as many bags as it needs. I don't give a shit. Like, I accidentally put a giant pizza in one bag and it's made the bag become like one big square that nothing else can go in. Don't give a shit. One bag per pizza.
So you're smart. I never take enough bags and I end up trying to stuff everything into 2.
Here's the trick, Jonesy. You buy them and then you throw them away even though they're bags for life.
Shocking.
I know.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah. That's the real life hack. Even though they've changed the laws around plastic bags, just treat them like you used to. It's easier that way.
Okay, so let's get back to Resi.
Okay.
But, I don't think I saw this, but what was the PlayStation 5 exclusive demo that they released?
So basically, they've released it's a short demo that it seems to be showcasing the game's visual sides. So there's actually no real gameplay mechanics in the demo itself. There's no combat. you can block in Resident Evil Village, but you can't in this demo. So it's not designed to be anything really other than
sorry, I'm lying. I downloaded this.
Oh, you downloaded this?
Lying.
There you go. You just haven't launched it.
I'm full of crap. I actually downloaded it. Sorry, go on. Yes, yeah.
I was going to say, well, you'll be able to speak to it in more detail, I guess, probably next week at this stage. But like, it seems like a taster. Like, walk through the environment, see some of the changes they made visually and lighting and so on and so forth. The visual fidelity improvements over Resident Evil 7, and then there's a little bit of an encounter, an engagement at the end. But from what I gather, because you kind of can't do anything, you just have to run away and get to the end of the demo until a giant 9-foot lady with the world's biggest tits walks through the door.
I want to say, if I actually, now that I remember that I do know what this is, I want to say it's called Maiden, and it seems like it is Ethan's daughter, which is who you're there to find in the main game, right? So
right? Yes, that sounds plausible.
And that you play her, and she then, and it's a 15-minute demo of her attempting like an escape attempt or whatever, or something like that. And it's just a nice little way of getting to see some of what's going on. But like you said, there is no combat. You can't, and it's I think it's 15 minutes. It's a nice little tasty demo. PS5
exclusive for now, but I believe they said there'll be another actual demo before release that's on everything. That I guess showcases some of the other game elements. But yeah, that's there for anyone who wants a taster of that or to see those tits up close. You never know. Some people are into that. After watching that demo, it's the strangest thing now on Twitter. I swear, loads of random people are just tweeting shit like, usually from like game journalists and game devs and all sorts of like hot industry people, are just tweeting shit like pictures of the mum, I guess she is. She's like a vampiric mum of like the three crazy daughters who sort of are flying around trying to attack you or whatever. Just like step on me or like choke me, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, for 1 second, believe that if you're in a situation with like some Amazonian dominatrix, that you'd be like, yeah, can you just like chuck me around and pull my hair and choke me? It's like, you don't mean it. You just like, this is such bullshit. I think they're doing it for humorous effect, Jonesy.
I think
it's what kids nowadays refer to as a joke.
I think that borders on kink shaming, mate.
What? People who actually liked being stepped on by Amazonian women?
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
Do you count yourself
what about
amongst
those
them?
People that read those tweets and think, you don't really like to be stepped on like I like to be
Jonesy,
stepped on?
Are you gatekeeping stepping on people right now?
I am. I'm gatekeeping it.
Wow.
Unless you're into it, don't be joking about stepping on people.
Yeah, only real fans of being stepped on know what it's like to be stepped on by a 9-foot tall woman.
I'm not even going to say tweet it because I'm sure they just meant it as a joke, but it was just, it's the fact that I saw like 4 or 5 in quick succession. I was like, what's going on? What's going on in the world?
She has become a bit of a meme, but I suppose she is a curious looking character.
Don't get me wrong, she was a smoking hot 9-foot tall, booberific Amazonian. I did see a few comparisons to, is because it's the hat, the angle with the hat, and then some shots of Melania Trump on like her last day with the hat. And
I have not seen that.
It was like, who would you pick? And it's like, wow, okay.
Probably the one who's a normal human height rather than the one that's 10 foot tall. No disrespect for the creepy Resident Evil lady, but anyone that has to duck to get through a doorway, I'm not about it. I'm not taking that to a restaurant.
To be fair, I wouldn't be surprised if Melania's looking for a new bit of stuff soon.
Yep. Clock's ticking. Anyway, elsewhere, they also announced a kind of long-rumoured multiplayer component to the Resident Evil universe, if you will, called Resident Evil Reverse, which seems to be taking locations and characters from famous Resident Evil games and mixing them all together in sort of what looked like a pretty rough around the edges third-person shooter multiplayer game that's going to be free for players of Resident Evil Village. So I guess that's something. I don't know, their last multiplayer experience, I went right under the radar for me. I can't even remember what it's called now. But yeah.
That to say it's free for players of the Village, isn't that just like saying it's a multiplayer thing that comes with the game?
They do this all the time. They love to see them as separate products created by separate teams, and then they can sell it for free on its own eventually and fill it with microtransactions and all the other fun stuff.
Lovely microtransactions.
But the other thing to get to, and this wasn't actually part of the showcase, but we kind of touched on it earlier because Chris and I made a bet about it and there was a lot of discussion, which is what's going on with Resident Evil 4 Remake, a game that, again, doesn't officially exist yet, but we know that it is in development. And based on some rumors that I think came out of VGC last week, based on their sources, it seems like that project is in some kind of upheaval at the moment, Jonesy. So essentially, development was being led by a new-ish studio called M2 that were made up of former Platinum Games employees. M2, I think, also helped out on some Resident Evil 3 stuff, and now we're working and leading the development of Resident Evil 4 Remake. From what we have been able to gather, those people and their sources, M2, in response to the way fans reacted to Resident Evil 3, which was a solid game but deviated from the original PlayStation game in some major ways, they were a little bit nervous about bringing too much to the table in terms of their own ideas and their own concepts, mechanics, anything like that. So were fairly faithfully remaking Resident Evil 4, which, interestingly enough, apparently Capcom actually weren't happy with. Apparently there were disagreements over the direction of the remake and the degree to which M2 were making it fairly faithful. They have now stepped in. They have taken M2 off lead development and put Capcom's Division 1 in charge. Division 1, like the lead team for the Resident Evil and Devil May Cry games, because they have expressed a desire to, quote, build a different direction through their own unique features, story elements, and environments. So, fascinating to get an update on the status of Resident Evil 4 Remake. Utterly bizarre to hear that this is happening, that Capcom are actually taking control away from a studio that were remaking the game too faithfully to give it to a different team that want to introduce their own ideas to one of the most beloved Resident Evil games, or maybe even most beloved games of all time. That's bonkers, isn't it?
No, I can totally see that. Like, I think I could imagine if you're being too faithful in your recreation of something, and someone wanted something like a bit, with a modern face, is that your fear may be that they lack the confidence into producing the thing, which is, a remake but with a modern face, and so then maybe your confidence in their ability to provide that is a bit knocked. I can completely understand that if that's what that's what happened. Assuming that's what happened.
Well, this seems to imply it was more that they don't want a faithful remake. They want new ideas.
But I guess you need both, right? You want the remake, but you also want to incorporate modern game design, more modern game mechanics, which make the player feel like they're playing the original, but with all the bells and trappings of a modern game.
What if I went back to the quote and said their own unique take on your feature, story elements, and environments? Like, does anyone, take story elements, for example, which is something that this source has quoted. Does anyone really want to know 2021 Capcom's unique story elements that they're going to bring to a remake of Resident Evil 4?
Not maybe the story is the less so. The story one is a bit more odd to me. Like, it doesn't have the story stuff. Surely you've got your story beats, and that's what you've got. I mean, unless they're saying they're just recreating the dialogue, and the dialogue wasn't as good as it could have been, maybe. And that's what they mean. But the story is the weirdest one to me. But of the mechanics and the way the game plays, etc., etc. Because I played a very limited amount of the original Resident Evil 2, but obviously then I played some of the remake of Resident Evil 2. And it didn't feel like what I remember Resident Evil 2 felt like.
You're right.
It wasn't a one-to-one remake. It was a new imagining or reimagining of that game, and it was bloody fantastic. Like a really good, really cool game. So I can easily see that if they were being too faithful to Resident Evil 4, then they'd be a bit worried about how that was going.
The only weird thing about that is, though, that Resident Evil, Resident Evils 1 through 3 almost needed that updating. They needed to find a new footing in terms of their what kind of game they were. You could remake Resident Evil 4 in a way that was very similar to what they've just done for 2 and 3 and please a lot of people, because they felt like modern, action horror shooters, which is in some respects all you need 4 to be. I don't know.
Unless they do mean like they want a whole new imagining of 4 and they want something new.
Because I think what 4 is for a lot of people, 4 was the first the first game in the series to really prioritize the action sort of element of the gameplay, take that in a new direction, and was so good that they really struggled afterwards, especially with 5 and even more so with 6, to recapture that Resident Evil 4 magic. So I'm not suggesting it's the one in least need of rejuvenating, because it is fundamentally still a 15-year-old game. if actually older. But I don't know. It was also the one that like made Resident Evil as an action-oriented horror series make more sense.
I mean, it does seem it makes less sense to reimagine things the closer you get to as today and when the game was made come together, because you don't need to do as much for sure. But maybe they are then. Maybe that is what they're thinking. No, we want to go a new way. And we want to see new ideas, because what we're going to do for 5, for 6, which that kind of is a little bit more worrying. I'll give you that.
You can't remake 5 or 6, can you, at this stage? That's all. They don't need to be remade. And secondly, they're too recent.
I'll be looking forward to Raccoon City's remake, because that was one of the trashiest games I ever played.
Wow. Yeah, that was not good. But yeah, interesting little update on Resi 4 there. I thought that was curious. Don't know how to feel about it.
It is an interesting, curious thing. So I think, we have 2 more stories, Jamie. So yes, Xbox, you know a lot more about this than I do, because I'm not an Xbox guy, but Xbox Live Gold had rubbed a few people up the wrong way with the way that they were going to sort of redo their pricing. Xbox, I should say, around Xbox Live Gold. And when was this? This was end of last year that they said they were going to increase the price. And they managed to piss off.
This was all this week. Everything happened this week. The announcement happened this week, and the turnaround happened within 24 hours.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, so yeah, hit us. What has gone on?
So basically, Xbox unveiled a new pricing scheme for Xbox Live Gold, which is their equivalent of PlayStation Plus. It's essentially a subscription service which you need to be paying for and be a part of to access, for example, online multiplayer. Despite the fact that it's free almost everywhere else, or like on PC and so on and so forth, Xbox still charge for it. The new pricing scheme that they'd set up was $10.99 for 1 month, $29.99 for 3 months, $59.99 for 6 months, which essentially made the service $120 a year, double what it used to be. Again, just for the ability to play multiplayer and access to their games with gold, which was their the monthly free games. Again, similar to PlayStation Plus.
That's almost like they got into bed with Stadia. I'm like, don't worry, we'll make it. You look good.
Yeah, exactly. They signed a deal with Google, like, hey, we'll take some of the heat. Don't worry. Well, there was a theory though that went around very quickly as to why they would do this, and it was to basically make Game Pass look like a far more sort of lucrative and like a better value for money prospect than it might have done next to a standalone subscription to Xbox Live Gold. For example, Game Pass Ultimate, which is sort of the most expensive tier of Game Pass that you can get, includes a gold subscription in the price. So they were pushing it in a direction that basically made any sort of bundling or anything that included Game Pass look like a far more better deal than it had done once on paper, especially for people who, in theory, were just interested in multiplayer games. However, there was significant backlash. This did not go down well at all, as I'm sure you can imagine. And the backlash was in fact so significant that within 24 hours, Microsoft and Xbox walked it back. They completely reversed all their plans to change the pricing and announced that they wouldn't be changing the price for any of the increments of Xbox Live Gold. But they actually went one step further, Jonesy, and made a change that Xbox was actually the last place to make, the last console manufacturer, the last service provider to make this change, which is essentially up till now, you needed Xbox Live Gold to play multiplayer free-to-play games. For example, Fortnite, very popular, free-to-play. If you played Fortnite on Xbox, you needed Xbox Live Gold. If you played on PlayStation, you didn't need PlayStation Plus. They have now reversed that. So free-to-play games are now actually free-to-play, even in multiplayer, on Xbox Live. So not only did they walk back their pricing changes, they also threw in a very important and probably a very requested feature, very requested change to the way they structure their service. And I don't think that's rolled out quite yet. But again, given what we know of the size of games like Fortnite, which is the easiest example to make, that's pretty significant for Xbox console owners.
It is. Yeah. And in reality, like, I don't think many people are going to go and cancel their Xbox Live Gold accounts or subscriptions because now they're like, well, now I can play Fortnite without that. Like, realistically, people would probably just keep it. So you've got to imagine they won't lose any money from doing that. But I think this goes to the fact that Microsoft do seem to be a lot better when it comes to reacting to how the audience feel about what they do. Like, and I think, for example, not only rolling back what they were going to do, but giving you the extra bonus of going, do you know what? Now you don't need Xbox Live Gold to play free-to-play games. I think that is a very smart move on their part to kind of switch the conversation in their favour. But yeah, so that's a quick turnaround in a week. Yeah,
I'm still surprised in some respects that they made such a significant error to begin with. To think that you could just come out at the start of the year and be like, yeah, we're doubling the price for this service that in some respects seems obsolete already anyway.
Well, they just put up Game Pass, haven't they? Game Pass has gone up to, I don't even know.
That sounds possible. I don't, honestly, the prices for every service is going up all the time that I don't pay that much attention anymore. I just got a notification this week that my Netflix price is going up.
Ah, yeah, I got the same thing actually.
So it feels like it happens every 6 months with all of them at some stage or another. So I wouldn't be surprised.
So maybe it was tied to that. So maybe they thought that it was the time to bump the price. Who knows?
Why do you think, though, that they decided to not only walk it back, but also to throw an extra cherry on top in there? Do you think it was because they thought it would be good publicity? Or do you think that was something they were planning for a little while with, aside from the price increase, and thought, let's do it all at once?
Oh, I think, like I said, I think it's a fact of that's bad publicity going, they've walked it back. But it's not going to sound good. And then to turn around and go, but we not only walked it back, we're also doing this that you've been asking for. I think they managed to make the conversation then be a positive, and people maybe more people talk about that than talk about the walk back on the pricing structure. But like I said, I don't think that actually hits them in the pocket for anyone playing.
Maybe it doesn't. It just seems
Xbox.
Like a very big change to implement on such short notice. Like, imagine the amount of people who have to sign off a decision where you say, oh, hey, all those people that continue to buy Xbox Live Gold so they can play Fortnite on the Xbox, we're going to make it free. We're going to lose all that money. And someone goes, why? And they go, we need some good publicity right now. We made a stupid announcement this morning. And then Phil Spencer's like, yeah, go on then. Like, that could be millions of dollars that they lose.
See, I wonder if it's something they've already talked about and they've said, we don't really think we're making any extra money through it. And so there's no point cancelling it because there might be some people that sign up to it who wouldn't, but realistically, it's not an amount of money that we really care about. And so they're like, and maybe they've chatted about it and over a couple of months ago or something, and it was saying that it was a known quantity that was already on the table for maybe at some point in the future, and they just threw in there. I mean, it could, maybe not. Maybe they were already going to do it, and it's just a coincidence.
I wish we knew the numbers, like how many people continue to pay for Xbox Live Gold just to play free-to-play titles. I wonder.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I can't imagine it's that many people.
But then again,
but maybe
it's the big, one of the biggest game in the world is free-to-play.
But I can't imagine it many people just play one game online.
I think you'd be surprised how many people play
just
very
play
few.
Fortnite.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not just play Fortnite, that might be an overstatement, but there are a lot of people who live and breathe on free-to-play titles right now.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Warzone would be thrown in there, Apex would be thrown in there. We're talking about tens of millions of players collectively who all would have had to have paid for Xbox Live Gold, just continue playing those games, and now don't.
It'd be great to know if they take a hit off the back of this.
Yeah, we probably will never know. I mean, and if you're a Microsoft, why would you tell anyone, right? Just eat the cost and roll on.
Just don't mention it.
You got enough in the bank.
Okay, cool. Well, we've got one last story, a bit of fun to chat around at the end.
One of those stories that you see the headline for and think, I can't not have Jonesy talk about this.
It's a cool headline. Gabe Newell has been living it up in New Zealand for a long time now. And he's been interviewed by TV New Zealand, who I can give you the headline because I didn't read this. You read it and then you said, "Oh, we have to talk about this because you'll love it." So the headline is: Gabe Newell says brain-computer interface tech will allow video games far beyond what human meat peripherals can comprehend.
And by meat, he means eyes and hands, apparently.
Yeah, meat peripherals, right? So it's got to be, I guess, ears, eyes, hands, skin, sure. all those sensing organs you've got. One other one that he didn't mention as well. But go on, Jamie. Why did you want to talk about this?
Well, because you've always been a big a fan and a vocal supporter of VR, and you've always been hopeful for the future of VR. You were something of an early adopter, and I think you're also just interested in future tech and tech that taps into where gaming and various other industries could be going in the future. And this is exactly that. This is literally, a billionaire in charge of a multi-billion-dollar company who have, in some respects, put their money where their mouth is with regards to their support of VR and AR and other, to use a loose word, futuristic concepts like that, although they're becoming far more real with each passing year, assuming the investment stays there. And I think for a lot of people, the idea that something that uses a brain-computer interface or interacts with your brain in any real way seems like it must be a million miles away. And I just thought to myself, if anyone believes it's closer to reality than I would, for example, it's got to be Alex Jones.
So I will say that the stuff he's talking about this. So he's talking about how a few things he says is that if people aren't using, or developers aren't using, brain computer interface headsets in the next sort of couple of years to start developing games, then they're going to be falling behind. And I think that's crazy. There is no way by 2022 you've got, so here's the actual quote. He says, if you're a software developer in 2022 who doesn't have one of these in your test lab, you're making a silly mistake. I think that is insane. Like, the idea that brain-computer interface will be good enough for software developers to consider it for commercial use inside of 2 years, I think is, unfortunately, is laughable.
The thing that he's talking about, for anyone wondering, specifically with this 2022 estimation, because I think some people maybe when they're given this information with no visual are just imagining some big thing where like you go to sleep with a headset on and you're just like playing games in your dreams. One of the examples of like the tech that he's talking about is a headset that Valve have already got a design for called Galea. I think, would you pronounce that, Jonesy? Galea?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Galea,
yeah.
It's a BCI headset, a brain-computer interface headset, that is designed to be used essentially in partnership with a VR headset. And Gabe goes on to say, you'll absolutely be using one of these modified VR head straps to be doing that routinely, simply because there's too much useful data talking about developing interactive experiences. That data will generally consist of readings from players' body and brain, which can be used to tell if the player is excited, surprised, sad, bored, amused, afraid, among other emotions. So at a surface level, we're talking about wearing a VR headset while also wearing another strap, another device that interfaces with your brain to read your emotional response to things and uses that to feed that information back into the gameplay experience. Does that make it a little bit more realistic for you as a thing that could happen in the next couple of years?
Yeah, of course. That does, because that's stuff that I think if you're, for example, if you're in a VR game, let's think about Half-Life Alyx, for example. Let's say that they want you to be scared and they know they can pick up on a certain part of your brain, which is like, well, this part of the brain should be buzzing right now because they should be scared, and you're not scared. And the headset's like, this dude's not scared. Then they might say, okay, maybe the game tweaks the darkness so it's a little bit darker. Maybe it drops in a few like noises or like weird little animal sounds just to kind of add a bit of terror to it. Like, I could see that being a thing, but I could see it loosely being used. I can't imagine that most game devs are going to really think that's something that's just going to make a big difference to their titles, especially like given the state of VR at the moment. That having been said, and from that side of it, he starts talking about how game worlds can be so much more high resolution if you haven't got to go through the eyes, and sound can be so much better if you haven't got to go through the ears. And he's absolutely right. Like, the brain is capable of interpreting a lot better resolution things than like you said, your meat peripherals can provide. But the direct, game to brain interface, that's a long way off. A long, long way off, I think.
Yes. To pull this article apart, he said, Newell also discussed the near future reality of being able to write signals to people's minds to change how they're feeling or deliver better than real visuals in games. Then this is an actual quote. You're used to experiencing the world through eyes, but eyes were created by this low-cost bidder that didn't care about failure rates and RMAs, and if it got broken, there was no way to repair anything effectively, which totally makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, but is not at all reflective of consumer preferences. The visual fidelity will be able to create...
you were talking about this before. The second they create the Matrix for real,
I mean,
life is over.
Jonesy, the next two paragraphs sum it all up. The real world will stop being the metrics that we apply to the best possible visual fidelity. The real world will seem flat, colourless, and blurry compared to the experiences you'll be able to create in people's brains.
I completely, that I'm on board with 100%.
Go on,
will it exist within 100 years? I hope so. I hope I'll be alive to experience it. Let's put it like that.
You want to visit Gabe Newell's... you want Gabe Newell to make the real world feel flat, colourless and blurry.
Dude, come on. I want to go into the Oasis. We know, we've talked about it before. I want to go in the Oasis. But I want to do it without having to wear some weird haptic feedback suit in my lounge so everyone can see me like sitting there in a weird like onesie. I think it'd be much better just to plug something into the back of your head. And since films like, I was going to say, like films like Existence, The Matrix, is it 13th Floor? Like they've all done this where it's all CG directly into your brain. And it's definitely going to come at some point in the future, but yeah, I don't think it's
like even you mentioned haptic suits there, which is something we've seen alongside VR experiences recently. Wouldn't even they be unnecessary if we could actually tap into people's brains the way we wanted to? Like, surely the sensation of feeling something in your hands is just your brain telling you there's something in your hands. So if something else could tell the brain that you feel something in your hands, then you've done it. You don't need haptics anymore.
You don't need haptics because, so haptics try and, like punk your input system by recreating feelings like for your hands, like you said, and for your body and stuff. But then if you bypass the hands and you go straight into the brain, then obviously you don't need haptics. Same as eyes. If you obviously don't need your eyes to see, and you're not limited by color vision, for example, because your eyes obviously you've only got like rods and cones that see certain wavelengths of light. If you could go straight to the brain, you could open up like, every color, every wavelength, every sound. Like you're not going to be limited by human perception.
Oh God, we're going to end up like that short film where people just don't want to leave that alternate universe. They don't want to leave the virtual world and just they're like heroin addicts.
You would never go out for dinner at a restaurant ever again. Why would you go out for dinner and pay for it when you could go into a virtual world, sit down, have the best food you've ever tasted every time at the perfect restaurant,
and you're just eating Soylent in real life? Like you're just.
You're not eating anything. You wouldn't have to eat anything because all of all your taste buds, or the way you feel when you're full, all of that stuff is obviously just feedback to the brain as well. Like you wouldn't need to.
Do you think there'll be devices in the future that are like versions of brain-computer interfaces that people walk around with during the day that exist to suppress hunger and tell you that you're full the whole time and that everything you eat tastes amazing? That's so interesting. Like augmented reality BCIs. So rather than like focusing on taking you to a different future, they just trick your brain into augmenting the real world and being like, yeah, everything you eat today is going to taste amazing. You're not going to get hungry because it's going to constantly tell you you're full. You're not going to feel pain because we're going to block out those nerve endings and receptors.
I'm totally with you, except for the pain thing. Pain is obviously important, like as useful.
Oh, you wouldn't want to, but it's also dangerous to tell people they're full all the time. People are going to starve to death accidentally.
But I think that's like a slow process, right? You could use other things you could have a smartwatch that told you, or the BCI itself could tell you need to eat this, and you could eat like you said, you pick up your Soylent and you eat it, but it tastes like the best juicy burger you've ever eaten, and you're like, oh,
we're going to become so dependent on this shit. But you know what? I
never thought about that sort of stuff. That's wicked. Yeah, if they could do that,
and then you could even go one step further, because then it's like, while someone can make the argument, okay, well, if every single thing you ate, regardless of what it actually was in real life, tasted like a big juicy burger, eventually you're going to get bored of a big juicy burger. Because how many times can you have the best burger of your life? And you say, well, I'm also going to tell my BCI to make me forget what it's like to eat the best juicy burger every time I eat it.
It couldn't maybe it could. I was going to say it couldn't rewrite your memories, but maybe it could.
Maybe. Okay, just make this burger gradually better and better every time I eat it for the rest of my life, until by the time you die, you're eating like a burger that's 10,000% better than the first burger you ever had.
But hey, it's the end of the world, right? What the second that all of the online types like like us don't need to go out and have a date to have a date. You can just pop into the virtual world and meet someone there. You're not going. Why are you going to bother?
Sorry, Josie. Pop into the virtual world. Why the fuck would you meet a real person?
No. Meet a in the virtual world. Meet a virtual person.
Exactly. You don't need real people anymore. You surround yourself by virtual people that are nicer and better looking and more accommodating, more friendly than anyone you know. It seems really scary.
It seems scary, but at the same time, doesn't it seem really exciting?
Maybe a bit. It depends which of the good parts of it I get to experience and which of the bad parts of it I get to experience.
Like, I can't imagine how good games will be when you can be in the game. But how terrifying will a game like Warzone even be if you feel like you're getting shot?
Yeah, but no one's gonna actually make it like. Maybe it feels like you're getting like if you imagine like getting like prodded. Maybe it feels like that. That might be all right.
Some nutter will make it feel like you're actually getting shot. There'll be hacks so that they can hack it and make it feel like you've got shot for real.
Chinese hackers making it feel like full-on painful bullets. Oh, I'm not touching that future with a barge pole. Disgusting.
But hey, what a fun little bit of futurism to end on. Thank you, Jamie, for joining me this week. Hopefully, Chris, I don't know how long it lasts, but hopefully Chris will be back to some form of good health next week and he'll be able to join us. We need a code word, mate.
We need a code word. I'm starting to forget what we even talked about tonight. I'm going through the things now.
What about if we had something like Gabe Newell's brain? Something like that.
Gabe Newell's brain. What was... I'm trying to think.
Or Gabe Newell's future.
You're making it sound like a product. Like Gabe Newell presents the future. I don't know. I don't have anything interesting or funny. I've got to be perfectly honest. Not to put you on the spot, but I don't have anything interesting or funny.
Oh, I know. Okay. We talked about the people that were kink shaming people who like to be stepped on from the Resi Mum. So if you get to this point in the video, to let us know that you got here on YouTube, in the comments, just put "step on me," and we'll know that that you reached the end of the video.
Actually, if you could just put like quotation marks "step on me" and in a little hyphen, like you're attributing the quote, just put Chris. I'd really appreciate. I want to see some comments like that if possible.
Very nice. But thank you very much for joining us. If you want to drop us a comment or find us on Twitter, we are at SuperShow Pod. We are on all of the podcasting platforms. So hey, if you watched it this week and you wanted to listen to it again, maybe check us out on a podcasting platform of your choice. And we will we'll see you again next week.
Bye.
So, bye.